8:07. Well, she was Sam in the iconic 1980s and 1990s Fernleaf and Anchor Butter commercials, living out her childhood on the small screen as the daughter of separated parents. Well, in our Where Are They Now series, we talked to the actress who played Sam, Hannah Gold. Hannah, thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning.
You look very familiar still. Do people often stop you and say, "Are you the girl from the butter commercial?"
They don't so much make the connection with the butter commercials anymore. They have a familiarity with me, but they're not sure why.
Why it is, and you let them out of their misery.
I do sometimes say, do you think it could be that? And thankfully, now often it's the fact that they recognise me from an interview that I've done about Hannah Gould as opposed to Sam, which is great.
Exactly, because obviously that was a long time ago. We'll talk about what you're doing now and some of the things you've done recently, but let's just go back to sort of 1989, because these were on our screens for 8 years, wasn't it? How old were you when you actually started being Sam?
I was 10, but they wanted to assume that I was playing an 8-year-old, so they kind of lengthened my real time by about 2 years.
How often you didn't shoot the commercials that often? I mean, for us at home watching it, and it was like a drama in our lives. You know, it was every night, and we sort of had updates on your life every few months. But how much filming actually took place for you? I mean, how often were you actually Sam?
It was once a year for about a week or a week and a half, depending on how many ads they were running in a series at a time. But it was constant. It was always on television, so in that sense, it didn't stop for the viewers.
No,
it wasn't often for me.
Was it a big deal, you know, through your teenage years, having such a well-known character?
Well, at the time, it was just what I was used to. Looking back, yeah, it's been a heck of a way to grow up, thinking about it, and no doubt it's had an effect.
What kind of effect?
Well, I just suppose there were certain things that you deal with maybe in adolescence that maybe I was avoiding dealing with certain things, and I just had to go through a couple of things really, really quickly after the fact. When the whole thing stopped, I sort of took a breath and, well, went about developing my own character rather than, you know, somebody else's character.
Yeah, I know you've got 3 of your own children now. If an opportunity came up like this for them at that age, what would your decision as a parent be?
Well, I haven't had to make it. I have wondered. I'm not sure I would be so keen on it straight away, at least, anyway. Having said that, it's an experience that I mean, I've gained a lot from having had the experience, no doubt.
Let's talk about what happened with you between the ages, I guess, of 18 and now then. Obviously, you didn't want to go into acting. It wasn't sort of something that you were immediately attracted to.
Not at first, but like I said, I didn't really want to go about developing other characters. I wanted to, you know, spend some good old-fashioned time with me and, you know, and just work a few things out. And I did, so I studied dance. But coming back to studying acting now, as of last year, I studied some Meisner actor training. One of the key quotes you hear from Martha Graham that I heard when I first started studying dance is that the body never lies. So I think dance is actually a really legitimate way into performance art, and that's how I came into it.
Excellent. And more recently, people will have seen you in the drama series The Hot House. Was it a hard decision to go back into sort of acting, I guess, and putting yourself out there and being on our screens again in another character, Ruth, this time? And in a slightly raunchy program as well, it must be said.
Yeah, it wasn't originally called The Hot House. They changed it, and I went, really? Are you changing it to The Hot House? Okay. And just went with it. Well, I kind of guess, well, I'd had my children, and I did want to get back into creative arts, you know what I mean? And television was kind of second nature to me, not in the interview sense, but in the playing a character sense. And so I just leapt into it. And it is what it is, and it was a heck of a way back in, but, you know.
It was a fun experience. And what now? Cool. I know you're pretty busy with 3 children, and you're involved in their lives. So what's on the agenda for you now?
I'm studying theatre at the moment down at Otago University.
Fantastic.
Yes, I'm doing some postgrad stuff. Thinking maybe more about directing, doing a bit of directing with Lisa Warrington and playwriting with Simon O'Connor, and some performance research, which is some really nitty-gritty stuff with Dr. Suzanne Little and Jonathan Marshall, Simon Hart. And this is all through Professor Stuart Young, who I worked with in Auckland. And it's just fantastic, really broadening my mind. And I just want to get into creating the stuff, you know, as well as being involved in the performance of it.
That's wonderful. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. When we started this series, your name was one that kept cropping up time and time again. People were so fascinated to see, and it was lovely to talk to you, Hannah, this morning. Thanks for joining us. That is Hannah Gold.
It was like a soap opera, wasn't it?
Thank you.
It was, and you are perhaps a little bit too young to remember it from the beginning. It started in 1989, and I mentioned something before to Jo Hunkin about the fern leaf butter ads, and she said, that's terrible because it mustn't have worked that well because I always thought they were Anchor butter ads, but they were because the branding changed partway through the marketing plan, and it was probably quite an unusual decision to continue the marketing through, but they did, and it was, I think, hugely successful for both brands.